So I've been playing a lot of Autobattlers in the last few weeks, particularly Hearthstone, Battlegrounds, and TFT. And I wanted to just take a little bit of time to talk about them in this video. Admittedly, I haven't played any other Autobattlers, and I never got around to Dota Auto Chess. And I haven't really heard of any others, so my perspective is just based on these two games at the moment. That being said, I'm going to start talking about Hearthstone Battlegrounds first, only because that's definitely the one I've spent less time on. I like Hearthstone Battlegrounds quite a bit as more of a casual player. I got a 45-25 rating last season, and I don't know what rating is actually good or bad. I think like 8,000 rating is when you start getting on the online leaderboard. I don't understand the skill perspective of their rating system, so I don't even know if my rating was good or bad, but for those of you that do, this gives you a general understanding of where I was at. Anyways, Hearthstone Battlegrounds really leans into the solitaire aspect of an auto battler, and I think it worked out well for it, especially since it's coming from a card game already. When it comes to Hearthstone, its auto battler doesn't rely as much on positioning as Teamfight Tactics does, and you still gain gold, but you gain gold in more of a traditional card game sense, where your gold functions similarly to mana, where you get an additional gold to spend every turn up to a cap of 10, and that's incredibly different from TFT as well. Their straight line positioning system, along with the mana style gold system, it probably serve as the two defining differences between the games. While positioning doesn't matter as much in Battlegrounds as in TFT, but I still think it's enough. Your board attacks from left to right, with some units having special effects when they die, and making sure they die while other stat boosters are still alive is important. Of course, the one game I played recently where positioning mattered the most, I didn't record, but there are units that cleave to nearby units when they attack, and there's another that automatically starts fighting the minion in front of them, which is unusual in Hearthstone Battlegrounds. But making sure your taunt minion is on the rightmost space on your board so that the cleave only hits one other unit, and placing a Divine Shield unit in front of the minion that fights the one across from it was game-winning positioning, and it felt really good. Then regarding the gold system in Hearthstone Battlegrounds, I almost like it a little bit more than TFT. While you get a very fixed income in Hearthstone, there are cards and spells that allow you to generate more gold to allow you to have some really big swing turns. The most important thing that Hearthstone Battlegrounds gold system does is that it encourages and allows players to interact with the game every single turn. Even if your single interaction for the turn is to hit the level up button, you still interacted with the game. And now you're just waiting for everyone else to take their turn, and I think in the mid game and the very late game, this makes a huge difference in terms of how you interact with the game compared to TFT. I think the biggest shot in the foot for Hearthstone Battlegrounds, though, is its presentation. Being just the little rocks and cards or whatever is just not nearly as satisfying as the full-on battles of TFT. Man, to this day, ever since it was rumored that Blizzard was having an auto battler, I hoped it was going to be on the Heroes of the Storm engine rather than Hearthstone. Imagine having an auto battler teams from all the characters in Heroes of the Storm, and you can have like a full-on Warcraft team or a full-on Overwatch team, or having a Necromancer or Summoner team with Diablo characters and Arthas and Kel'Thuzad, or a Swordsman tag with Genji and Samuro and the Barbarian. Sometimes I think about the potential of a Heroes of the Storm auto battler, and a single tear will roll down my face just thinking about what could have been. And when someone asks, "Are you okay?" I'll just have to say, "I'm fine, just thinking about what could have been." And they'll think I'm talking about an old girlfriend, but no, I'm just thinking about a Heroes of the Storm based auto battler. I'll at least have TFT for the amazing visual spectacle battles it has. I love the current TFT set. The Battle of the Bands theme is spot on, and this was another set idea I was hoping for ever since Set 2 introduced different skin lines into the game. The blending of music is an awesome idea and just sounds like a huge undertaking for the dev team, but they absolutely got it spot on. I like the way a lot of the music genres got translated into gameplay elements. True damage is fairly simple, but it works. Pentakill being these bruisers that get even more powerful after getting a pentakill makes sense and is super cool. The one tag that I like more than I thought I would, and I think opens up a lot of interesting future gameplay elements, is Punk. I love the roll down gameplay where your units also get stronger the more you roll, rather than simply just getting more powerful with getting 2-star and 3 stars, but getting more stats as you roll. Punk actually feels a lot like a Hearthstone Battlegrounds archetype, where you're spending gold to make your units more powerful, and I think there could be a little more visual flair with showing how powerful they're getting, but I think it's a really great first run and archetype that plays like this. Immediately, the next thing that comes to mind for a unit or archetype that plays like this is a Noxian and Demacian style interaction. You buy a Darius, and every time you find a Demacian unit in the shop, you buy it, drag it to Darius, and Darius will have his alt animation play where he executes a Demacian unit you just bought, and he gains extra stats. For a Demacian unit, you could buy Noxus units and then they get jailed on the bench, and the unit that jailed them gains stats for each Noxian you have imprisoned. I like the Hearthstone style of playing certain cards to give others buffs, or other cards that get buffs from playing other cards to increase the stats rather than just the baseline synergy powers of TFT. I'd like to see a little combination of each. They had Tomcatch in the one set where you could do something similar with feeding him units and he gained stats based on the unit fed. But Punk takes this to a whole different level with the buffing all of your Punk's units as you roll, which is pretty cool in my opinion. I hope they kind of take this concept and expand on it further, because the more I was playing TFT recently, I realized I didn't have any issues with the set itself, but my issues were more with the inherent TFT gameplay mechanics. I think my main gripes come with the interest system and win-loss streaking. As opposed to Hearthstone Battlegrounds, where you just get a singular gold extra of income every turn, TFT, you more accumulate gold over time with no real cap. So you get 5 extra gold per turn, and then you can get extra gold from winning or losing for a win or loss streak. And then you also get gold based on how much gold you already have. So if you have 10 gold, you get an extra 1 gold for the end of your turn. If you have 20 gold, you get 2 gold, 30 gold 3, 40 gold 4, and caps out at 50 gold and you get 5 gold. I dislike that in TFT, after taking a loss, especially early on, instead of thinking, I lost this round, how can I make my team stronger? Do I level up and get another unit on the board and start getting access to stronger units, or should I start rolling some gold to try and star up some of my units? The correct answer is often do nothing, commit to the loss, and wait until you have 50 gold so you can ensure you start making maximum interest as soon as possible. Then and only then is it smartest to then play the game again. The only interaction left for you is to go look at other people's boards and make sure you have the weakest board to keep your streak and reach maximum interest as soon as possible. And until next patch, you can guarantee you are having the weakest board by just selling your whole board and guaranteeing your loss in exchange for truly not interacting with the game at all. Granted, next patch they're taking measures to discourage open boarding, is what it's called, by increasing how long it takes to start getting streak rewards, and if people are open boarding against each other, it resets their streak for not interacting with the game. While these will definitely discourage open boards, I'm not sure how I feel about the streak changes. This will definitely discourage open boarding, but with it not being as quick to hit important gold breakpoints. This change definitely has me concerned if in the average game this means I have to wait even longer to hit 50 gold and finally start playing the game, or on the potentially good side, if loss streaking now just takes too long that you'll be dead before you start making decent gold, and you should always be fighting to get a win streak. That currently remains to be seen before the patch goes live, but punishing players who were using the system as intended who now have to play with less resources because of people who were using the system as unintended always feels kind of bad. Before these changes were announced, I was kind of thinking of potential solutions that I would implement if I was the devs. And kind of the two solutions I was thinking of is if you didn't have a full board at the start of combat, you take double health damage this turn. That would still, I wouldn't change anything else about the rules where if you have units on board and you don't have a full board, it would like grab the unit and bring it on board. That way you could never accidentally not have a full board. This would mean the only time that you don't have a full board of units is if you're actively trying to do open boarding or going all in to try and sell your board to get a 3-star 5 cost anyways, and risking it all to try and get a 3-star 5 cost and risking taking double damage is a pretty cool trade-off in my opinion anyways. But my secondary, like, quote-unquote countermeasure was to maybe implement a gold-only spoils of war at whatever percentage might be deemed correct baseline to the game. Because even now with open boarding and the announced countermeasures against it, instead of pure open boarding, you can still have just one unit on the board, and you're banking on that pushing the loss streaks back. You can still just have one unit on board. Then you're also banking on the hope that pushing the loss streaks back is enough deterrent over all the gold being saved of not having a board at all, and then being able to commit to the loss streak. With double damage not full boards and a baseline spoils war, that encourages players to find a delicate balance for finding the perfect loss where they kill all the units but one. So even while losing and trying to save health, you're also getting the chance to make some money back from buying the unit. I do understand this could also turn into some really snowbally games for people who get lucky early and are consistently winning and are just getting consistently lucky, but it would be then about finding the sweet spot in the drop rate so that it doesn't result in consistently snowbally games while still encouraging players to interact with the game. Other than that though, I really like TFT as a whole. Again, I think the current set is a ton of fun, and I think my only critique for the current set is that I wish more headliners had interesting effects on their functionality. This is more of a personal request because I understand that making the game any more complicated would make it harder for new players to get into the game, but I think it would be cool if headliners got different effects based on what tag got doubled. Let's take Thresh for an example. An awesome unit, but what if when he gets a country headliner, when he gets taken low, he hops on Hecarim for a ride and replenishes his health, and then comes back into play when he reaches full health or Hecarim dies. Then for Double Guardian, maybe for allies inside the circle of his lasso where enemies are stunned, those allies also get a shield. And maybe these headliner effects are only for the 4-star characters and the 5-cost characters, because I also understand that this would greatly increase the burden of balancing all those shenanigans, but I just feel like a lot of the headliner effects could be more interesting than like 15% attack power. I currently like both Autobattlers, but I think they could learn from each other and become even more fun. I'm kind of surprised there aren't any more big name Autobattlers out there. I feel like a lot of franchises could slot right into the genre and are almost begging for it. I feel like 3 franchises in particular that would go great with an Autobattler would be Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Dragon Ball. I feel like Pokemon could be incredibly cool as an Autobattler, even more so than the obvious tags that go with Pokemon through typing and which generation they come from. Even though Nintendo would never do this, I think the setting could be incredible for an Autobattler for Pokemon. Because Autobattlers are generally team versus team rather than the classic 1v1 or 2v2, even though I guess you could do an Autobattler where you rotate through a team of 6 or whatever with the 1v1 Pokemon fighting each other until they faint and then rotating a new Pokemon in. But that just feels kind of weird for an Autobattler in my opinion. I think it would be cool if that a Pokemon Autobattler setting would be in the rumored Pokemon Wars of old that often get mentioned in the mainline games but are never really touched upon in the actual games themselves. And it would explain why you have these huge teams of Pokemon out rather than your normal 1v1s. You can either evolve Pokemon by buying 3 of kind like other normal Autobattlers, or you could have them evolve after a certain number of takedowns and your active Pokemon that are on the playing field gain EXP as they win fights. Or maybe you could do a little bit of each, where getting takedowns and gaining EXP could be a sort of bad luck protection for not finding the 3-star, which would be very new player friendly, which is very important and common in a lot of Pokemon games. You could even do an item system in Pokemon where maybe you have some are consumables like berries or potions that give big one-time uses but break, or you give items that stay on the Pokemon like the Choice Scarf or Choice Band in the mainline Pokemon games. Or even maybe there's TMs that you can find over the course of the game that hold iconic type moves, and so you give those TMs to specifically the right type of Pokemon, and when they use their ult they use a new specific type of move to give new utility or new levels of damage for your team. There's just so much to work with in Pokemon, it's hard to believe that one doesn't exist yet. For Yu-Gi-Oh, it's got to play at least a little bit more directly into the fact that it starts from a card game, right? So maybe kind of like Legends from Set 9, TFT, but I'm imagining more like Summoner Spells in League, where you make a deck of like 5 spells that you can use over the course of the game to influence the outcome of a match. Then it would be all about the weird and wacky summoning conditions that Yu-Gi-Oh has, I think. You can do some weird things with Ritual Monster. The rituals can be spells in your shop that when bought goes on your bench and you have to sacrifice a certain number of monsters to it to reach an exact certain number of value to summon a powerful monster. Or you could have the rituals function like a unit, and it goes on the board, and your goal is to kill a certain number of monsters from your opponents whose souls get sacrificed for the ritual. So the trick is trying to kill units while being a unit down. Maybe the rituals themselves provide a small aura buff, so it's not impossible to kill units from your opponents. And then when the ritual monster is summoned, it provides the aura buff too, but you're not playing a unit down now, and you have an actual pretty powerful unit. I think there's also enough cool equip cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That you could do items in there as well. Harpies could be like country, and the more harpies you have, they'll summon a stronger Harpy's Pet Dragon. Or they could get different bonuses, like at 3 they'll unleash Triangle Ecstasy Spark, 5 they'll get Cyber Armor boosting their stats, and 7 you can summon the Harpy's Pet Dragon again. The possibilities are just endless. Dragon Ball sounds fun just because 3-starring unit could bring your character to a different form, and you can have different tags between Saiyans and humans and the other kinds of different characters that are in that franchise. You can even have like a different Tournament of Power set where you have tags based on the universe they're from. You could have a hero tag or a villain tag, and for a hero tag, where if an ally would die, the hero would port in front of the unit that's low and protect them and take attention away from attacking units, and the rescued unit would heal for a certain amount. I think the tricky thing in this game would be ranged units versus melee units, because pretty much ranged versus melee in the Dragon Ball universe is just ki blasts versus fists. There's not like a whole bunch of gun users in the Dragon Ball universe, so making it interesting with ranged units and melee units might be a little bit tricky, but I think it could be done. The units could do both melee and range with ki blasts. You could have like melee assassin characters, I don't know, let's say Adult Gohan, start fighting from the front, maybe getting stacks of energy like he does in Dragon Ball FighterZ after he kills a unit, and then you could have a ranged tank Blue Goku with the hero tag firing ki blasts from the black line. Then when Adult Gohan gets low, Blue Goku warps in, taking aggro and giving Adult Gohan time to heal, which would be cool because Gohan could get a few stacks from the front line, and then he gets a heal to try and go in and get more stacks again. It's pretty show accurate too, Goku watching Gohan get beat up in the back line until the last possible moment before coming to help out. For a few of the 5 costs, they could have a villain tag where they attempt to execute low health minions and gain stats every time they pull it off. You could even do a stupid set where there's like 10 characters only, and it's like different versions of each character from the different shows and different Saiyan levels and whatnot. So you could have like a Goku tag or a Vegeta tag, and then just have teams of entirely Goku or Vegeta or Broly or something like that, and you could just get totally goofy with it in Dragon Ball. I just feel like the Autobattlers is a really underexplored genre, even for as long as TFT and Hearthstone Battlegrounds have been around. It feels like there's still a ton of space for other people to join in and make interesting games around it. Anyways, thanks for watching and listening to this unexpected rant about Autobattlers. Hope you have a great day and stay toasty.